Hello and welcome. It has been 20 years since a winter getaway in a ski resort in Utah by 17 veterans and pioneers in software design led to the so-called Agile Manifesto, starting a new chapter in IT service design and delivery. Project managements, IT organizations, service playbooks, roles, titles, and expertise were all impacted, as well as cultures. New mindset and culture was brought about. And now we have hundreds of thousands of practitioners around the world in most high-profile IT engagements. In the meantime, in the last 20 years or 2 decades, other advancements in IT brought about a maturity and reliability to information technology that was not seen before and unthinkable back in the 90s. DevOps, cloud and mobile computing, software as a service, platform and infrastructure as a service, and before that, virtualizations. These advancements further helped the promise of Agile in early and continuous delivery of valuable products in each sprint. Digital transformation that currently is ongoing in private and government organizations is about bringing this maturity home. In this movement, Agile service delivery is responsible to prepare mindset, culture, and organizational changes, plus a digital life cycle to software products and services. It plays the role of a spinal cord, holding all other pieces together by bringing peoples and individuals as a quote-unquote non-linear first-order components to this transformation that can make or break the result. Agile mindset is about bringing motivated individuals and their interactions ahead of other components. And this is what this course is focused on. Motivated individuals and their interactions. Storytelling and story listening is the first step in individual interactions that happens in discovery stage. Since release of Agile Manifesto, there were many frameworks and playbooks appeared. Disciplined Agile Delivery, DAD, and a Scaled Agile Framework, SAFE, with a lowercase e at the end, are two most popular playbooks in practice. That size of organizations, complexity of project, geographical distribution of multidisciplinary team, etc., are addressed in them. Discovery Alpha Beta Live is another such playbook that offers a full cycle Agile software delivery. Double has gained popularity among governments of Commonwealth countries. UK, Wales, Scotland, Australia, New Zealand, Canada's federal government, British Columbia, and now government of Ontario have all adopted Double. These government organizations have also set up a kind of executive body, some kind of executive body to oversee their ongoing digital transformation. Digital First in Scotland, Government Digital Service, GDS in UK, Digital Transformation Agency in Australia, Canadian Digital Service, and Ontario Digital Service in federal and provincial government. And also these organizations have each drafted a specific Agile playbook or manual of their own, with using titles such as Digital Lifecycle, Digital Service Standard, Digital Service Design Manuals, Agile Delivery Steps, etc. We follow ODS playbook of Double that is called Digital Service Standard 2021. In Double, discovery is the first stage. It is the client engagement is the business engagement or ministry engagement. It is what used to be called a requirement study in old days and now changed drastically. And in discovery, storytelling and story listening are core activities. My name is Masood Hariri. I'm part of NTO Ministry Engagement and Advisory Branch. My background in IT includes a number of disciplines since mid-90s, developer, DBA, Unix system administrator, performance tuning, SQL tuning, benchmarking, and in the last 15 years in OPS, senior IT architect and business analyst. I hope you enjoy the content. Let's get started.
It seems very obvious, but is worth repeating that our goal is not agile, not waterfall, not any framework that exists de facto or seems to be the future, or anything that is legacy. Our goal in IT, in designing products and services or providing support, and in any other business, is to do more with less. Whether we work for a government organization, well-run government organization, or for a private corporation, we want to optimize our effort, maximize our gain. The resources are limited from time, money, otherwise. We want to maximize the amount of work not done. So let's agree on this part. The second principle is that each engagement is unique. If agile is the right exercise for one, it might not be the same for the other one. There are work requests, there are small initiatives, there are IT, purely IT infrastructure kind of work. There are projects that are more unknown in it than others. There are projects that 90% of them are known. So there is no simple formula for all engagement. Each engagement is unique, and we as practitioner, we need to use our brain and expertise to find out what can give us more with less. Discovery, Alpha, Beta, and Live are framework or playbook that is adopted by a number of government organizations, including Ontario. First, let's look at discovery. All four stages of agile product delivery in this implementation double are interconnected. They are in fact one journey. Discovery is the first stage. This is the place, a meeting place or venue when we meet the storyteller, our storyteller, the business, and we hear detail about the business processes, challenges, issues, pain points, grievances, etc. It is in this stage that we learn the language of business. The next stage is alpha. Having heard all the stories, in the first stage, we need to embark on a journey. We need to choose a destination that customer or business can land and dwell happily, that it matches their vision, and their grievances are resolved, their pain points are removed, etc. In this stage, we choose that destination. We analyze all the hypotheses and select the right solution. Prototyping is an important tool in analyzing and selecting the right hypothesis or destination. The work of our designer starts with prototyping. In beta, customers or business take part every day in all activities. They also look at a demo of working software up to that point at the end of each sprint and provide feedback. Beta phase ends when minimum viable product is completed and goes live and the business operation are transformed to the new software. We are now at our destination, the one that we selected at the alpha phase. The last phase of double live is about continuous improvement of our product that is now at work handling business operation. We designed the scope of our minimum viable product based on priorities in user stories or business functionalities, plus their interdependencies and other technical necessities. Therefore, some other user stories were left out in the backlog item. Now, living in a new situation with our minimum viable product at work, it is time to go back to the backlog item, start grooming and reprioritizing again, given our new experience, and design new sprint and bring other features into the product. This is how continuous improvement looks like at work. We have moved to a newly built house. It is now time to gradually make it a home. Since we are going to get better in listening to other people's story, let's start with two analogies. First, learning a new language. Let's imagine we are learning French for the first time. We don't know anything. We sit down with a French teacher online or in person, and then he or she speaks French only. In that conversation, we need to let things pass. Number of things we cannot catch. They will come back. We learn them later. We need to keep the questions and interruptions to the teacher to a minimum, or let's say a reasonable level. Second analogy, reunion with a lost friend. Imagine we come across a friend, a good friend that has been away for a long time, maybe in a remote country, and with him or her there are a lot of catching up to do. A lot of stories, events, people, culture, maybe traumas he's gone through. And we sit down with that person, we need to be patient. It is not that we are going to understand everything he says. We need to be patient and give him time to open up and to set up or to lay out the ground for us in order to understand the events as he starts describing. First, we need to find out who is the storyteller. That person is our partner in the entire journey. It could be more than one person. It could be introduced ahead of time in pre-discovery as product owner by business, or it could emerge after a couple of sessions of discussions as that star product owner who is knowledgeable and has the authority on the knowledge around all aspects of how business is done and can make a decision. We need to find that person and have a good trust, relationship, and chemistry between us. And that task is incumbent upon a business analyst. Storytelling is a voluntary job. It cannot be forced upon somebody, otherwise, the quality is greatly compromised. It has to be done in the right session, in the correct setting, with a mindset of which is relaxed, that can remember a lot of details, with a listener that is caring and attentive to to what is told. It better start with open-ended questions. We cannot impose structures on interviews early and prematurely. The discussions could be discursive, jumping from one uh, subject to another is perfectly fine. We need to record the session, and even the recording or making notes had to be in such a way that is transparent to the storyteller and is not disruptive to the process. We can listen to the story as many times as needed later on, but uh, the imposing structure on the questions early, it is damaging to the result. Ethnographic research, or in situ, that is a great addition to discovery. It adds to the quality of result. Being in the situation where things are happening, the business is ongoing, seeing people, equipment, and communication at work on the fly. This is important, especially for MTO. That is even more important as the operation is happening on the ground, whether they are snow cleanup or selecting a contractor, or they are transportation safety inspection station, they are bus terminals, or you name it, whatever they are. Especially for MTO, that is even more important as the operation is happening on the ground, whether they are snow cleanup or selecting a contractor, or they are transportation safety inspection station, they are bus terminals, or you name it, whatever they are, registration for licensing. Uh, Being in those situations helps a lot in understanding the real story. However, during the pandemic, that is not possible. Therefore, we need to add to the quality of our interview, and we need to find the right substitute to add to our interview, making it more efficient and more fruitful. Okay, we assume that everyone knows the format and the definition of user story. The most important document probably coming out, not as a complete, as a draft, as a transitory working paper out of discovery stage, is user stories. And as our interviews getting into a more structured stage and getting out of discursive mode, as we are reviewing the reviewing the recording and our notes after the interviews, getting intimate with how the business is done, that it is time, not necessarily during interview, in the time between them to have some draft or some line of how the user stories can be drafted in terms of granularity, in terms of how they are can be next to each other in a way that they're aligned and they can have independent life of their own during sprints and development activities, test activities, other activities can be arranged around them. So this needs a lot of thinking, and the best person or role that can make this happen is business analyst or product manager. There are questions whether we can add other expertise involved into this draft of user stories, but that we will discuss later. At this point, let's leave it there. The user stories will be drafted. They are placeholders. There will be one or two paragraphs only, or maybe a bit more, but there will be a lot of details in next stages during alpha, beta, and live. It will be added to user stories. Story map, another document, again is transitory. This is not exactly a document, is an exercise, is a workshop. We need to give it a good thinking first and prepare the ground. Then we bring a product owner into the loop, into the workshop. It better be done in a graphic interface. Miro has a great template for it. There are another story map tool online is free that is specialized for story map. It's called Story on the Board. I have used it's okay. I recommend the template in Miro. The purpose of a story map is two things: how stories are grouped into a bigger group called epic, first thing. The second is how stories are horizontally can be drawn such that the top ones, the top row of stories constitute the most important one in all epics. Therefore, number of these horizontal lines of stories, they can give us our minimum viable product. That's the purpose of a story map. It should not be complete. When we do it, we cannot expect this to be final. In next stages, there will be changes. Definitely will be some changes in it, but we need to start from something, and then when we go to next stages, at least have an understanding how this is. Stakeholder mapping is another document that again will not be fully complete, but here will be a good draft of it, as we are hearing the story from business from the earlier stage to the more structured interviews. There are names coming up. We need to get these names listed of folks, organizations, uh, other ministries, agencies that are somehow involved, whether downstream, upstream, whether they are fully application automated integration or user interface. They are somehow stakeholders. We get this list. During this stakeholder mapping, we try to group them into some meaning. Other ministries. We get this list. During this stakeholder mapping, we try to group them into some meaningful subcategory in terms of different criterias that we think are important for this particular engagement, whether They are a type of involvement that we need, whether they are how they are going to be informed, whether they are at which stage of the product development delivery we need to bring them into the loop. So basically the purpose is to group these stakeholders into some uh, meaningful groups, and this is will be also usually the stakeholder mapping document will lead to a good integration document later on that shows which applications are integrated into ours, or at least will input into that document. There are a number of techniques, documents that we may or may not need, such as diary studies at a very later stage of discovery. For example, when we find out that there are some gray areas about either about the user interface or about the how business is done or about the information flow, whatever, we design a set of questionnaire. We ask a number of users to fill in how the users are selected. They are selected by business, by product owner. We don't approach or just decide on what kind of users are going to fill this in. We provide the criteria whether they need to be super users or using this or that function, and then the business owner, product owner will decide which users are to participate. Again, we may or may not need diary studies. It only comes later when we have a good understanding of business and the daily flow of information and everything. Then to remove some of the gray areas, we design the questionnaire. At that stage, our questionnaire and the content of it, they are not meaningless, they are not irrelevant. When the users read the questions, they understand, they can relate to it, and therefore they spend time. They get encouraged to fill them properly, and then the results will fed into our information, give us a better, more complete picture of how business is done. Continuing our discussion on discovery. Let's look at discovery from another point of view, from bird's eye view. What do? We bring IT and business together for a conversation, for storytelling and story listening, in which there are a lot of acronyms, definitions, meanings, events, common the terms, business flow, roles, everything are discussed. It is as if we are learning a new language. It is a new language, it's a common language. Let's call it ubiquitous language. It is that language that is spoken in the multidisciplinary team that will embark on creation and delivery of development and delivery of the product in the next phases. How to learn the common language. This is only possible step by step, session by session, by listening and getting engaged in the story and in the natural two-way conversation that takes place, feeling a sympathy for grievances and pain points, recording everything and going over the material later. Step away from it all and do some thinking and making some notes, and then attend the next session much more prepared to listen, prepared to understand, and to ask relevant questions. Discovery is not about designing a solution, not about promising future functionalities to business, not about reinforcing existing tools, screens, ideas, or concepts. Hopefully, it is not also about completing it and handing over the result to another team. What does that mean? It means that the momentum, the chemistry, the information that are all gathered by IT and the product owner team. It is better to continue through the process until the end of MVP, when the MVP goes live. Managers, despite all the limitations and competing uh, priorities for resources, better to plan for these two teams to continue. Otherwise, some of the details could fall into gap and the momentum could be lost. 2 points about engagement of user experience designer or the sympathizer in chief, as some call it. First, we don't want to jump into the end user interviews too early in the discovery. We better spend enough time with product owner and get the big picture first. The second is that if the scope involves a total redesign of UI, we might want to not taint the mind of our user experience designer too much with the existing status quo of UI, which could kind of contaminate his mind or her mind and have negative impact on innovation, as the new UI is going to be completely different. As the title of our talk is Storytelling and Story Listening, we do not cover the next phases of double in detail.